The following program is rated U for universal audiences and is considered suitable for listeners of all ages.
This is a presentation of Dream Realm Enterprises, where dreams are our reality.
Hello and welcome back to Q I am your host, Jon Russell, and today we will be talking about Doctor Who Season 22, the collection, the limited edition box set that just came out on June the 20th in the UK. I've managed to finally get hold of my copy from Rare Waves. You can get yours right now. You can get it from Rare Waves, or you can get it from a number of online providers, or you can go to Amazon.com and get it from their Amazon global store. The current rate, as of this recording, is $54.24, which is not at all bad for this box set. And yeah, you probably should get it now because, of course, that price point will not last for all that long, because as we know from history of the rest of these collection box sets, limited edition sets, that they tend to get very collectible very quickly as they sell out in the UK, and many of them going for ridiculous prices, because trust me, I know, since I've been trying to fill in the gaps and get all of these limited edition boxes. And one of these days soon, I am going to do a more thorough look at the limited edition box sets for this podcast. I was hoping to be able to grab all of them to be able to peruse to talk to you guys about it when I do that special episode, but I have not been able to snag one of them, which is season 18. I do have, of course, the standard edition Blu-ray release of season 18, thankfully, and I had, for a while, I had the American edition. But I did manage to get hold of at least the standard UK edition, which, you know, the content on the discs are the same. That's the good news. But the box itself is a much smaller box, which, you know, that's fine. If I had decided to go that way with all of them, that would have been fine. I originally liked the smaller boxes, but as I got into looking at a couple of the limited edition box sets up close, I really appreciated the packaging and the presentation. So there are just more bells and whistles. There's more artwork. The booklets in there are really thorough and cool and have a lot more artwork and photos and information than the standard release. The UK standard releases actually, they do come with a little booklet, but it's, it just has the information of what's on the discs. It doesn't have any extra bells and whistles, if I can speak this morning. And it doesn't have all the extra artwork and so forth, and neither do the boxes. You just get a standard box with a dust sleeve and all that kind of thing. Which again, it's not a bad set. It's in that form, but you just don't get those extra bells and whistles. The big boxes can be a little bulky. They can be a little flimsy at times too, because the actual plastic casing that holds the discs, the glue is not very good, and they tend to fall out after so much usage. So you have to handle them with care. Sometimes they arrive that way. I've had a couple that have arrived in the post that the glue has come loose, and so the plastic case that holds the discs, they already, like season 17, it arrived brand new, still packaged, but the plastic container that holds the discs was already loose. The glue was pretty much non-existent. And I've had one or two, even season 22 here, as I've been going through the discs to review what's on there. The plastic container that holds the discs has actually come loose, which, is neither here nor there. I'm not disappointed that has fallen apart. It's not ruining the experience for me. And it all goes back together. So, and it fits in its box really nice. And if you put it back in the J card and put it on the shelf, it's fine. It's secure. So, it's fine. It's fine. But I do love the boxes. I love the design. I love the artwork. They look really good on the shelf, side by side. I will get into, as I said, a more thorough look at the whole range at a later date, soon, not too far off, and do some comparisons as well with the additions, more so than I'm even doing right here. But anyway, our topic of discussion today is season 22 and that box, which just came out. And I just got mine just a day or two after I recorded the last Q-Who, when I looked at Doctor Who and the Daleks. So I was saying on that episode, I believe, that I expected to get it within a week or so after that, but it actually came just a day or so. So good on Rareways. They were reasonably quick. I got it within 6 or 7 days after the release, which is good for Rareways, because a lot of times you're waiting a couple weeks after release. So they really dispatched season 22 relatively quickly. A lot of people would be disappointed they didn't get it on release day. That's, as nice as that would be, that's not always realistic, especially considering I'm in America and I have to wait for these things to come overseas. So at any rate, I digress. Season 22, you have Attack of the Cybermen, Vengeance on Varos, The Mark of the Rani, The Two Doctors, Time Lash, and Revelation of the Daleks. It's not a bad season at all, as far as the stories are concerned. I've always rather enjoyed this season, Colin Baker's first full season as the Doctor. Particular favorites of mine have been Vengeance on Varos, The Mark of the Rani, and The Two Doctors. I always thought those were really strong stories, and my opinion has not really changed of those. I remember when I first saw this season way back in the mid-'80s, when PBS ran them here locally, that Attack of the Cybermen was kind of higher on that list as well, and The Two Doctors was actually kind of lower. I was not thrilled with The Two Doctors at the time for I don't even know what reasons, but it didn't seem to really stand out as much as some of the other stories. I absolutely didn't like Revelation of the Daleks, and I'm still not over fond of it. Time Lash, that everybody rips apart, I actually rather enjoyed back in the day. I have not yet had a chance to watch the whole story, so I'm still getting through some of this stuff. As far as watching the actual episodes, I haven't watched them all on the set yet. But I have watched bits and pieces of it, and I watched the Behind the Sofa feature with the actors watching it. I've seen all the Behind the Sofas for each of these stories, and it's brought back memories of it. And yeah, Time Lash doesn't look as if it may not hold up to my teenage memory that it was just wonderful. Although it seems like some of the actors really enjoyed it. But they did do new visual effects for it. And I did see a side-by-side comparison. There's a video on YouTube that someone did a side-by-side comparison of the two versions as far as the effects were concerned. And some of the effects are really, really good, the new effects, and are very effective. And I'm very happy about that. A couple of things here and there, I just thought, what was the point? They didn't really improve anything. And as far as a couple of the effects in the story, the original effects, I thought they were absolutely just fine as they were. So, like where they show the surface of the planet at the beginning of the story, I thought the original effect was beautiful anyway. I thought they did a great job. But some of the things within, and the time lapse itself was always rather unimpressive. But I like what they did with it in the new visuals. So that was a definite improvement. But as far as the stories are concerned, I mean, I'm not going to go too deeply into that. You all know the stories, I'm sure, and you all have your own opinions of each one. I did watch the extended first episode of The Two Doctors just to see, you know, what that was going to be like, and I perused some of the extended additional. Part 1 of Revelation of the Daleks is longer, but it's only longer by about a minute. So I don't even know why they bothered having 2 separate versions of that, because it literally is only about a minute's difference. Just put the minute's worth of footage back in and just include that episode and forget about the broadcast version. That's how I look at it. I'm sure there are completists that would disagree with me vehemently, but I just don't see the point of having 2 different versions when that's all you're getting. The entirety of Vengeance on Varos has extended versions of both episodes, but I haven't actually gotten around to watching that one yet in the extended edition to see if the extensions make a real difference. As far as The Two Doctors were concerned, mostly it's alternate takes and extensions of scenes and just little things, which doesn't do anything for the story. It doesn't hurt the story, doesn't help the story. So it's neither here nor there as far as I'm concerned. And obviously with the Revelation of the Daleks, what little bit they added back in didn't make a bit of difference to the story, didn't help it. It's still not a great story as far as I'm concerned. It's certainly not one of my favorite Dalek stories. I don't know if it's my least favorite Dalek story, but it's certainly down on the list. I've never been that fond of that story. It's just so bleak and dark, and I never did get into that story, and I'm not over fond of the incidental music in that story. Yeah. But anyway, as far as the other behind the scenes stuff, yes, we have the behind the sofa stuff. We've got Colin Baker, Nicola Bryant, and Terry Malloy, who plays Davros, watching these. I would still love to know how they make the Behind the Sofas feature. I would love to be able to talk to someone there, Chris Chapman or somebody, and just ask the question, do they really sit these actors down, and do they watch, every minute of that season? Or are they just presented like they are here, just clips from each story? And they sit through and pretend to have watched it all. I just wonder, what do they do exactly? Do they watch it all, or do they not? And that would be interesting. And nobody ever seems to ask. Chris Chapman does a lot of interviews, it seems, but nobody ever asks these kinds of questions, and I don't get it. But he is a lovely fella to listen to. There's a lot of YouTube videos out there where YouTubers have interviewed him, and he's always a fascinating fellow to listen to, but nobody ever seems to ask the hard questions. So I put that to one of the YouTubers that had an interview with him recently as to, why don't you guys ask, you missed the opportunity to ask him the hard questions. He doesn't have to answer these questions, of course, and he may not. And he actually saw my inquiry and said that, basically he would just use some variation of I don't know or I can't say, I thought that was amusing. But yeah, he's a lovely fellow to listen to. So if you ever are on YouTube and you want to listen to some of the behind the scenes information. Chris Chapman, who directs and records a lot of these behind the scenes featurettes on these sets, is often interviewed, has been interviewed quite a few times by various people on YouTube. So you can find interviews with him, and he really is a fascinating guy to listen to. So it's always very insightful, but they never seem to ask him the nuts and bolts questions that I would love to know the answer to, like that, behind the sofa thing. Do they really make them watch an entire season in one go, or are they just presenting them with clips? And so it'd be interesting to find out. But anyway, we have also, seems to be the standard on all of these now, Sarah Sutton, Peter Davison, and Janet Fielding. My least favorite lineup to watch these, because they always seem to ridicule, and this time they weren't as negative as they normally are, but they still ridiculed a lot of it. But they seem to enjoy themselves, so this was one of their better outings. But in future, I wish they would just not include, at least Peter Davison and Janet Fielding. Sarah Sutton is a joy, of course. But, those two are not the best commentators, Janet Fielding and Peter Davison, because they just seem to not really care for the subject matter. I don't know how they'll be if they start watching the older ones, like the 60s and so forth. Maybe they'll be kinder, but they're not very kind to 80s Doctor Who for sure. And I'm not saying there's not reasons for that, but it gets a bit tedious because it's always the same sort of line from those guys. But they also had Wendy Padbury with Sylvester McCoy watching these as well. And I really enjoyed that pairing. I enjoyed Colin Baker, Nicola Bryant, and Terry Malloy. I think they could have just gone with those two sets and left Peter Davison and his lot out of it, and it would have been just fine, But we also have the Blu-ray trailer, which of course was great to see again. They did it, it's kind of a mini movie in itself, where we get to see Perry later on in life, and that she's apparently back with the Sixth Doctor. I don't think I'm giving anything away there. They included Slipback, the original radio series on this, which I was very pleased because I never did get around to picking up the CD version of Slipback, and it's going for mad prices on eBay, so you can't get. I had the tapes way back in the day, but I never did get around to grabbing the CD release of Slipback, so that's on here, and that's nice as an extra. They did an immersive 5.1 surround sound mix for Attack of the Cybermen, which I haven't listened to see, if that's any better than the standard version or not. And then there are some really nice interviews on there, and other. They did a making of for the Two Doctors finally, which was really, really cool to watch. That was one of the better new featurettes on here. I really enjoyed that. They've got a location visit to some of the locations from the season by Nicola Bryant and Colin Baker, which I honestly haven't had a chance to watch yet. But they do have 3 in conversations with Matthew Sweet, featuring Colin Baker first on the first disc, and then on a later disc we have Nicola Bryant, and on another disc we have Michael Grade, of all people. All 3 of those interviews were quite interesting. I did watch them. They're long. They're all 3 over an hour, nearly an hour and a half each. So it's very thorough, and Matthew Sweet is very, very thorough. A very thorough interviewer and a delightful interviewer. He really does try to get to the heart of the matter. He will ask those hard questions. I really like him as an interviewer. He did his best with Michael Grade to try and get to the facts of what was really going on back in the mid-'80s with the supposed cancellation of Doctor Who. And Michael Grade, of course, is still spinning as ever. He was still being very show busy, politically show busy in that BBC way, rather than being, I didn't feel he was being completely genuine. He's sort of giving his side of things, but it's not very believable, I have to admit. It wasn't awfully believable. Yeah, he's still just spinning away, and I still don't feel that we were able to get to the heart of what was really going on. I think you can easily read between the lines by some of the things that he says, and go, yeah, we can really see what was going on there. He really didn't care for science fiction, and he really didn't care for Doctor Who, and he really didn't care for anybody associated with it, especially Colin Baker, etc. Although he just plays it off like, oh, no, absolutely not. It didn't mean anything to me. And, it wasn't a hatred for the show. It was this and that. And, it was, why spend money on something that's not being very well done, and et cetera, et cetera. The truth of the matter is the BBC have never known what they had with Doctor Who, and even to this day, I don't think they really know what they have with Doctor Who. They have a better grasp on it now than they did in those days. They value it more than they did then, but even when he's pushed on it, the fact that Doctor Who was a big money maker, well, it's clear that Michael Grade was happy to get the money from the sales of Doctor Who and so forth, overseas sales and what have you, and use it, but he had absolutely no interest in using it on Doctor Who. So, which to me I've never understood the BBC's take on that. If you have something that is arguably, at least since then, over the years, Doctor Who has been one of, if not their biggest money maker. Why wouldn't you want to keep doing it? Why wouldn't you encourage them to do it better if you don't think they're doing a very good job, rather than let's just axe the show and not waste people's time and money on it when it's something that's an institution. People who aren't science fiction fans love Doctor Who, but he won't acknowledge any of that, and doesn't seem to grasp that was and still is a very valuable commodity to the BBC. And the BBC, of course, now, who are just holding on desperately for their very existence, need to, I think they're realizing they need to really value those properties like Doctor Who that the public value. So, I think that's why they brought Russell T Davies back now, and they're doing, making efforts to try and save it and keep it going. But certainly in the 80s, they didn't value it at all. And even though they were, they acknowledged that, yes, it was a big moneymaker, they still didn't value the show, which is just, that's just insanity to me. Still is insanity. And they didn't really look at it, because if you really, really looked at it, you would see that Doctor Who's heart was in the right place, even if it did sort of go off the rails and wasn't, being made perfectly. If it failed in certain areas, they could have fixed it. There's so many ways they could have fixed it. There's so many things they could have done to support the series instead of let's just axe it off because it's rubbish. And to this day, the man still doesn't get it. And that's what you come away with from watching this interview. At least that's what I came away with, is he still doesn't get it. He still doesn't care. He's actually, even though he won't openly admit it, he's still very proud of the fact that he tried to axe it. He thinks he did cancel it. That's the funny thing. And Matthew Sweet kept trying to get him to understand, no, the show lasted X number of years after you left the BBC, so you really didn't cancel it. And oh yes, it's down to me. I canceled it. It got canceled because of me. That was my decision. No, it wasn't. No, it wasn't. Clueless, just clueless. This man, still clueless to this day. But oh well, that's neither here nor there. It is an interesting interview, even though nothing is accomplished and the man is still just spinning. I wouldn't have given him the time of day if it was me, but kudos to Matthew Sweet for having the patience and doing his best to try and get to the heart of the matter and give the man a chance to say his, to speak his side of the story. But, yeah, it is what it is. But the Colin Baker interview is wonderful. We really get to hear basically his life story. It comes off very much as his autobiography, because we learn a lot of details from his childhood on, and touched a lot of interesting things, including the death of his son, Jack, due to sudden infant death syndrome. SIDS, as we call it in this country, and cot death, as they call it over there. So he even touched upon that. So it's a fascinating interview with Colin Baker, and another fascinating interview with Nicola Bryant in there, where we get to hear a lot of the behind-the-scenes stuff from when she was first cast and so forth, and the pretense she had to put up trying to convince everybody that she wasn't an American, an uncomfortable situation that she was put into because of that and other factors. So those were really interesting interviews, and probably some of the best new material on these sets. So those are the kinds of things that make these Blu-ray sets really worth it. Yes, you're getting the best possible version of these stories, but you're also getting some really great material, behind the scenes stuff that you didn't get on the DVDs, and then on top of that, you got all the stuff that was on the DVDs as well. There is a fix with Sontarans on here. It does not have the Jimmy Savile stuff. The intro stuff and outro stuff with Jimmy Savile. They just put in the actual mini-sode of Doctor Who, a fix with Sontarans. So you just get that, and that's it. So it's as a featurette, it's about a minute shorter than it was on the DVD, which is fine. That's fine. We just don't have to look at Jimmy Savile. So that's there, surprisingly. And, all the other old gems that were on the DVDs are there as well. So this is a really nice set. This is, for my money, this was actually one of the better season box sets, just because of the extra content, if nothing else. And, and these stories do look better than they've ever looked, better than they could have looked on DVD and certainly VHS. So it's worth the money, especially considering right now it's going for, under $55. So if you have any interest at all, or if you're a big Colin Baker fan and liked season 22, I would suggest grab this set. It's absolutely worth it. I would give it 4 TARDISes out of 5 easily. It's a great little set. I've enjoyed the last few days going through all this stuff, and I'm not finished. There's things I still need to watch, like those extended cuts of Vengeance on Varos, which I do plan to get into, and I don't think it's here nor there as far as this review is concerned, so I didn't feel like I had to watch it before I did this commentary, because I suspect it's going to be like the other two. Probably not adding a lot to it, because the episodes themselves don't seem to be much long, just a couple of minutes here and there longer than they were originally anyway. So yeah, I can imagine Vengeance on Varos probably isn't dramatically changed because of the little bit of extra material they thrown into these extended versions, just like the Two Doctors Part 1 and Revelation of the Daleks Part 1. Nothing was added that that help the stories along any better than, what they already were. They are what they are. So extending them by a minute or so doesn't do any harm. It doesn't necessarily do any good either. I probably would have had a slightly different opinion when I 20 years ago or something, because I always liked extended cuts, but these days I have less tolerance for them, because especially if it's like this and it doesn't really add anything to the story, I just don't see why they necessarily bother, or why they bother giving you the original version when they've given you this version. So just pick one. That's how I look at it. Just pick one. It was like that on the season 24 set, where they pretty much extended everything. Two versions of everything to fill out that box and make sure we had 8 discs. We had extended versions of all of them, and only one of them benefited from any of it, sadly. But at any rate, this is a really solid box, and I would recommend it. So Colin Baker's certainly not my favorite Doctor, but I have come to appreciate him more over the years, especially after the Big Finish stuff, where his Doctor really got to shine. But I can see he was a good Doctor from the beginning while watching this material. He was quite enjoyable. He was really good at, I think he gets a bad rap because of all the behind the scenes stuff that was going on at the time, the show getting axed, etc., and that awful costume he had to wear, which he really, really should have put his foot down and said, under no circumstances will I wear this crap. He should have had say on some say, at least, on what he wore as the Doctor, because it was his, it was going to be his character, it's going to be his show. So I would have taken one look at that and said, absolutely not. They could have toned it down at the very least. But I think it gets a bad rap because of stuff like that. And popular opinion at the time that the show was rubbish, even though there were good things about it. And there were really solid stories in this season, especially Vengeance on Varos, Mark of the Rani, and the Two Doctors are very solid outings. Attack of the Cybermen still holds up pretty well. Again, I haven't had a chance to get really immersed in Time Lash again, but I remember liking it when I was young. So, there must be some redeeming quality in there. And while Revelation of the Daleks is certainly not my favorite Dalek story, it has its moments, as I recall. But overall, solid season, solid box set. And, highly, highly recommended. 4 TARDISes out of 5 for the whole thing. So, it's at a really good price point now. If you're a Doctor Who fanatic like myself and have to have everything, grab it now before it goes sky high and crazy. I mean, for instance, trying to get hold of season 18 of Doctor Who, the limited edition set, they're going for $300 and up on eBay. These highway robbers are, they want to make a fortune, and anytime they have an actual auction where people bid on it, the bidding just goes insane. So I have not had a chance to get hold of that. One time I had a chance to get it for what I would consider a halfway reasonable price, and they had that one, season 10 and season 19, and I had enough money for one of them, and my choice at the time was season 19, because that one seemed to be the hard one to get as well. So it was just like, season 18, season 19, season 18, season 19, and I went for season 19, and I haven't regretted it. So luckily I have that one of the hardest. Seasons 10, 18, and 19 are the hardest ones to get. So I had a hard time. And season 10, I actually got the Australian version, which, I did that because it was somewhat affordable. It was a price I could live with, and I was also curious what's the Australian releases like. They are a little bit different, and I actually found that I liked the Australian release of that season. The content, of course, is all the same. It's just the box that's a little different. We'll get into that whenever I get into my QWho, where I really look thoroughly into the whole range, this Blu-ray range. So, which will come in the near future. I don't know. The next QWho you hear most likely will be another review, possibly. A review of Doctor Who and the Daleks Invasion Earth 2150 AD, which is coming out in July. So I will be reviewing that one. I don't know if I'll have a QWho in between here and there. We'll see. But I would like to actually do some reviews of my watch through of the series, because I've started watching them through from the beginning again, and I wouldn't mind. I've been making notes as I go to actually talk to you guys about my feelings on watching them again after all these years, because I obviously saw them when I was young and had one impression. To watch them now that I'm older and have a different impression is, to me at least, interesting. So hopefully it'll be interesting for you guys, and I do hope to do something along those lines as well. So there's some ideas percolating for what we can do here on QWho, and I hope you've enjoyed the content so far. This is 208, I think it is. I may have said a different number at the beginning. I always seem to forget. And I always have to go back and record a new beginning and go, oh, I said the wrong. Actually, the beginning of the last episode, I actually said, oh, welcome back to DBB, which I'm so used to doing. And I had to go back and re-record the beginning for that one. So I don't know what I even said at the beginning of this one, but this is 208. QWho 208. So welcome to QWho 208. If I did say the wrong number, I apologize. I'm a little absent-minded in my dotage. But at any rate, thank you guys for listening. I really appreciate it. This has gone on a lot longer than I wanted it to, but it's been a more thorough review than I normally would do, because there's a lot to talk about with these sets. 8 discs worth of material, so it's really nice. It's really nice to go through these when I get them. So soon we will talk more about all sorts of interesting subjects in relation to classic Doctor Who. And I hope you've enjoyed this discussion, and hopefully you will enjoy those discussions. So, and of course, you know that we're doing other things with DRE. We've got the Doctor Who story, Murder on the Solar Express, that we're about in the middle of now. The first couple of episodes have been released, and there are a couple more to go, at least as of this recording. So, yeah, you've got that to look forward to. More of our Doctor Who, our take on it, with our Dr. Paul RBC. So, hopefully you're enjoying that. So, but anyway, until next time, guys, you know the drill. Please stay tuned.
You have been listening to a fan production for Dream Realm Enterprises. This is a not-for-profit program.